Good afternoon and welcome to BigMint's Q&A. We are delighted to have Mr. Bimlendra Jha with us today, who is a steel industry veteran and also a coach and a guru. So, sir, we would like to understand from you now that we are participating at the BigMint Build Construction Conference for the Distribution and Channel Network. What are the main trends that are going to shape the Indian steel industry in the years to come?
So first of all, congratulations to BigMint because I really think that you guys have established yourself in a big way to create transparency in the industry for its entire supply chain, starting from raw materials to the end products, including value-added products. Now, from your own data, if you see that there has been a tremendous growth in the steel industry, and when I joined the steel industry, it was at around 22 kg per capita consumption in India, which this year is definitely going to be a more than 100 kg per person, because we are likely to be at around 165 million tons production. So, if I really look at the going trend, there are some big mega trends shaping the industry. One is the presence of AI and 3D manufacturing. They are robotics. They are going to shape manufacturing in a big way, but also the entire supply chain. The primary impact on the supply chain can be that each distribution point can be a good converging point for bringing in all the people who provide services such as masons, contractors, or suppliers of not just steel but also cement, glass, paints, etc. It can be, the time is ripe to not only create one-stop shop, but even if the shops do not store everything, with the help of AI, you can actually integrate everything. You just go to the shop for relationship purposes, but everything can be delivered to you in a manner that it is seamless experience for the customers. So AI will shape it in a big way. The second big change that is coming is that it is not just some small number of big players who are now providing their products and services. There are large number of brands that have been created in India, particularly in long products. Probably in flat products, there will still be large players, and everybody else in the supply chain will be processing and making it fit for use for the customers. Whereas in long products, there will be large number of players who can no longer be called as small players or secondary players, simply because there is a trend of movement towards electrical arc furnaces. Earlier, when there was induction furnaces without refining, quality used to be questionable. But I think the time has come when quality will acquire greater importance even in the secondary steel sector. And these people are becoming more than 1 million, 2 million ton players, each one of them. So they have the scale to afford to create systems and processes that will assure quality for the customers and also give them better experience. I think this trend is going to be extremely helpful from a customer point of view, and any data transparency that comes will actually integrate very well with the customer experience, and where BigMint can play a big role.
Sir, we have been talking about quality. So, as you are aware that for a long time, for public infrastructure projects, the secondary steel sector was not allowed to supply for public infrastructure projects due to different reasons, quality reasons. Now that, of course, policies are also changing, and now that different technologies are being adopted by the steel industry, how do you see going forward the secondary steel sector contributing in a much larger way to national, steel making and the goal of achieving?
So, as I said earlier, that quality was a big concern when induction furnaces were being used. There's still some induction furnaces being used, and that is not the best way of producing steel for rebar, because in the single length of rebar you may have different properties, and that is not great. However, with electric arc furnaces, the secondary steel sector is no longer secondary in that sense, from the connotation of what was coming with the word secondary. Now they have the refining facilities, they have all the right infrastructure to produce the steel. And how do you now differentiate between somebody who is a secondary steel producer using electric arc furnace, and Tata Steel's Ludhiana plant being called green steel and producing from same electric arc furnaces, or for that matter, Jindal Steel producing it in Nalwa as electric arc furnaces. Everybody who is producing from electric arc furnaces is producing quite similar quality. Historically, IS 1786 was not designed to look at the process. Uh, and from that point of view, its quality specs were also quite broad and people could play around with that. I think a little bit of narrowing of specs and little bit of more focus on the process should free up the industry from usage of steel as long as it is produced through the electric arc furnaces and not the induction furnaces. And then BF, wouldn't make much of a sense because the trend is going towards elimination of BF, route eventually. As the green steel starts getting produced, the DRI gets produced through the green steel route using hydrogen. All these are for the future. So, future of steel making is likely to be more into electric arc furnaces with a lot of green energy also being available, cheaper energy being available. I think this is the route to go.
Very interesting point about green steel, sir, that you raised. So, of course, according to the government's taxonomy, we have seen that many players, many smaller players from the secondary steel sector today are also qualifying for green steel according to the star system rating of the government, and they're also kind of producing low carbon emissions steel. So, going forward, how do you see the demand for green steels emerging in the construction and public infrastructure sector?
I think first of all, the current taxonomy, my personal opinion is it's not great. You should not be giving 5-star rating at 1.2 tons of carbon emission. You should be bringing it, 1.6, I think. 1.2 to 1.6, then 1.6 to
1.6 to 2. Yes.
2 is the 4-star, and then 2 to 2.2 is the 3-star. But I have myself, when I was at Jindal Steel, produced it for less than 600 kgs by using green energy. So, if you really want to give 5-star rating, give it at that level. Maybe 800 kg should be the limit for 5-star. Between 800 to 1.2 or maybe even 1.6 can be accepted as as 4-star, and then beyond that.
So that is not ambitious enough.
Actually. This is not ambitious enough at all. In fact, when you will start seeing 24/7 energy being available in the country, renewable energy, which is possible because if you have 8 hours of solar, 8 hours of wind, and another 8 hours either through pump storage or with the battery technologies evolving, you could potentially have more investment in storage. And there are newer technologies that are coming where the deterioration in performance does not take place up to 10,000 cycles. I think the time will come within next 5 years when you will have 24/7 green energy available. The moment green energy is available and you invest a little bit on your supply chain for collection and storage of scrap, you will see that it is technically possible to produce easily below 600 kg per ton of steel through the electric arc steel making route.
So, coming back to the question on demand. So, how do you see the demand now that the government green public procurement system is also in the works? How do you see demand, evolving for green steel?
Demand will evolve on the basis of economics. No force system will be able to deploy measures that can generate too much of demand. Otherwise, what will happen is what has happened to Europe. Europe exported employment and imported carbon by these kind of mechanisms. They started having all these carbon taxation, etc., EU ETS and all that, and EU ETS prices went up. They started reducing the allocations every 10 years. See what has happened. It has killed the steel industry in Europe. The preparation was not there. But India can leapfrog that. Why India can leapfrog? Because India is really going big way into renewable energy. Now, you have to time it properly so that, 25 years almost, you are getting a low-cost green energy almost with zero inflation. Because when you are putting up a solar power plant and you are fixing the price at 2 rupees or below per unit, and for 25 years there is no escalation. Now, this is really cheap. And when you have this kind of a cheap source of energy, use it for producing steel, at that time, you will not have to tell somebody buy green steel. It will be cheaper to produce and cheaper to buy.
And demand will naturally evolve.
Demand will always evolve based on economics. That's the simple principle of economics. Any forced way, like Europe, will only shift the production away from that region to some other region.
So, sir, one very interesting point that you raised about renewable energy, which can easily be used to, decarbonize current operations. What other strategies or levers you see for the steel industry right now that can be used to minimize
So,
emissions?
I think over next 10 years, powder metallurgy will evolve. And using 3D printing, you will stop wasting energy for producing steel, then cutting out a lot of wastage out of it, and then using it. You will produce near net shape finished products. And as that happens, there is a benefit. Of course, with electrification of vehicles, you see a lot of components of castings, etc., are going away from four-wheelers. When this becomes longer range possibilities with the battery operated vehicles, including not just the four-wheelers, but also trucks, etc., and that trend is improving, what will happen is that there will be less and less components used in the form of iron inside that body. Now, in order to make that body lighter but safer, there will be competition between aluminum and steel. My own forecast is steel will win hands down with the kind of cost reduction that will come due to the energy costs. So, and it will still remain a more viable product. But powder metallurgy will evolve for smaller components and things that can be produced in near net shape in this whole process. So, you will see there will be also some amount of changes that will come from the concrete industry itself. Today, it is possible to use carbon nanotubes into a concrete mix and create form factors for a concrete beam similar to that of steel beam, with the complete flexibility of producing it near the construction sites. Now, these are the kind of changes which are happening in the material science space. And we should not believe that the material science space will exclusively benefit steel. I think concrete will give steel a good competition with the help of ultra high strength concretes that are evolving now.
Yes, sir. So you're talking about material efficiency, and also, but sir, actually, currently the steel industry is, of course, hugely reliant on the blast furnace and basic oxygen furnace route. So of course, it will be there for some more years because investments are being locked in that route. So how do you see going forward? What technologies will be adopted to minimize emissions from this route?
So BF-BOF route, there is no doubt about it that still major steel producers are investing in that direction. There are exceptions rather than the rule that anybody is going into the green steel direction, particularly using hydrogen-based DRI, because that kind of a cheap hydrogen, green hydrogen, is not available in that quantity right now. But they are getting ready. However, that is not the trend of investments. So, once you have put up a BF-BOF route, you have committed yourself for next 15-20 years at least. And now the challenge becomes, how do you make blast furnaces more carbon efficient? So, I think this is where there is a lot of work going on to use off gases, to use them back into the system rather than using the hot blast main with air. You use some of these gases inside, cleaning of these gases so that you're still using the energy available in carbon monoxide. There are a lot of there is a lot of change that is also coming around. Almost everybody going into coal injection rather than coke. So I think the changes that are coming into the blast furnaces, they will reduce the carbon dioxide emission from the blast furnaces, particularly when there is a pressure where you are not able to export because of high carbon emission. Now, even at 3-star rating, if the limit is 2.2, 2.2 tons of CO2 per ton of steel, now at the blast furnace stage, you will have to dramatically reduce it. So it is quite possible that instead of BF, BOF route, it will be a hybrid at that stage, where after the BF, you are using this hot metal which is coming out along with scrap or DRI, whichever comes with a lower carbon footprint. And as you use them into a hybrid furnace, which are there with some of the players in the country, like Jindal Steel has that. So when you use it in a hybrid furnace, you are able to use the carbon staying inside the hot metal by using oxygen, and you are not using that much of energy because of the exothermic energy that comes out of it. You are using it for melting scrap or any other form of metallic such as DRI. So there is also this kind of a possibility of a hybrid technology reducing the carbon footprint of steel.
Sure, sir. Sure, sure. And one last question, sir, about green steel demand that I had in mind. Of course, now in the automotive sector, in the construction sector, in home appliances, other sectors, many companies are announcing their net zero targets and their net zero timelines. So, of course, there are so many companies in India which have declared their ESG targets and net zero targets. So, going forward, how you see the demand for green steel evolving?
They are all being less than ambitious and cautious in their targets because nobody is committing it before 2045 or 2050, and there are very few who are saying, okay, I'll do it by 2030. Now, what happens by 2040 or 45 is that a lot of things that I've been talking about in terms of the green energy, etc., availability of green hydrogen, 24/7 renewable energy, etc., will be available in plenty and at a low cost. So yes, it would be possible through this route itself. But that will, in the near or intermediate term, like next 5 years, it will not suddenly create a huge demand for green steel. Green steel, to my mind, is an economic choice in the longer term based on the structural changes that are happening in the energy sector.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your insights.